Hello. Are we live? We are. We're live. How's my sound? Is anybody here? I don't know the best way to do this, guys. You'd think I would be getting it figured out by now since I've been doing this for like 2.5 years almost, coming up on. It's just like every freaking day is brand new, which I guess is good. But, I like routine. I like things to just be consistent, and it's anything but. There's just way too much real life going on. How is the sound, you guys? Shall I just leave it alone, or shall I try to knock everything over? What do you think? Okay, let's get started. How are you guys? It is the 30th of December, 2024. We're coming up on New Year's Eve tomorrow. It's just about 2:31 right now, Ohio time. So standard Eastern Seaboard time. Checking out the hair, checking out the craziness. Where's the hat? Help me. Hat, help me. Man, I can't stand it. Okay, I'm just going to delete the whole thing. You guys, I don't like to say this because I don't want to jinx myself, but sometimes I think I should just give up on the freaking YouTube because of the hat and because of the hair and because of the lighting and because of the trolls and because of everything. Should I just turn it off and start over? I'm just going to do that. And I'll try not to look down, so I'll try to make it so you guys can see me. I just don't like it being all cattywampus, as I like to say. So let's just stop fretting, chill, hit that like button if you don't mind. I've got some wholesome milk in my peace cup, so let me see if it'll help, all right? I get so excited to come on, and then it just seems like one thing after another, and I cannot get my live started, and here I am, and nobody's here with me, but that's okay. I'm going to just get down and dirty with my notes, with the things I want to talk to you guys about. I just always like to see where you guys are at. Please make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed, and if you're not, consider just hitting that button. That does a world of wonders for the channel. I do need to get my hair trimmed. My hairdresser was sick last week. Damn her. I hope she sees this video too, so she can see what she's done to me. Share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like it, and turn on your notification bell to ring. What else? There's a couple other things I like to add. Oh yeah, everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion, learn something, be educational. All these videos that I make are for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. So I'll try to make it so that you can see me, because it's nice that people even want to see me, right? I'm very appreciative of that. So thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for being here. It might be the last one of the year. I might be able to do one more tomorrow. We'll see. The cases that I've been talking about lately, I want to keep talking about Martha Moxley. Her mother just passed away last week, and I did not realize that until the day before yesterday. So if you don't know who Martha Moxley is, I've been talking about her in the last couple of videos. I've also been talking about the situation with Michael Jeffries from Abercrombie and Fitch, and what a nightmare he is. What a nightmare he is. But most importantly right now, I want to talk about our beloved, dear President Jimmy Carter. What a man. What an amazing individual. And so he passed away yesterday at the age of 100. He turned 100 on October 1st, I believe. And you know that my son is serving our country in the Navy, and he's a ceremonial guard. And so he has been waiting to be called for this appointment. And we were sitting talking with family and dear family friend, and he got the text before it was announced. And it was wild because we had just said something about Jimmy Carter and, how he was going to be like alive forever, right? Like a science experiment. And it's a beautiful thing for people to live a long, healthy, prosperous life. I also believe it's a beautiful thing to rest in peace and to reunite with your loved ones. So we know that he was very much looking forward to reuniting with his wife, just like Johnny Cash had. And just like Martha Moxley's mother, Dorothy Moxley, had been. And so last week she got to reunite with her 15-year-old daughter who was taken from her way too soon. So also we have the kind of the cross-pollination of, I got her name wrong in my last video, Ethel Skakel Kennedy. I said Edith Skakel Kennedy, and I apologize for that. I like to not mess up people's names. So Ethel Skakel Kennedy was 96 years old when she passed away this past October 10th of 2024. And she is the aunt of Michael Skakel, who has been convicted of taking Martha Moxley's life. That conviction was overturned, and then it was reinstated. And then I believe it was overturned again. And then on the 45th anniversary of her life being stolen from her, on the 45th anniversary, I think it was October 30th of 2020. So it was a week before the election. And a judge deemed that the case against Michael Skakel could no longer be tried. It could not be brought to the court's attention again, which I just thought was a Kennedy move. I'll just say it. Also, I have learned that RFK Jr. wrote a book called something like Framed, How Michael Skakel was Framed for the Red Rum of Martha Moxley. And I think he published that book in 2016, but I think that book had a lot to do with it just going away. I can't help but wonder, it being a week before the presidential election of 2020, if that had anything to do with it, especially now since RFK Jr. is in the incoming cabinet, right? And he had been running on his own independent ticket and then decided to withdraw from the campaign and hop on to the Republican ticket, which is odd because Kennedys are pretty much Democrats, but also the Skakel family is like staunch multi-generational Republicans, and he had been aligning himself closely with them. I would imagine since his father was assassinated, since RFK was assassinated, because his mother, Ethel Skakel Kennedy. I tell you, once my wires get crossed, they are crossed forever. It's insane. So Ethel Skakel Kennedy's brother is Michael Skakel's dad. And Michael Skakel, being the youngest of 7 kids that grew up in that extremely wealthy enclave of Greenwich, Connecticut, and the mother having died of cancer a year and a half before. The dad, it sounds like he went through many family assistants or helpers or whatever you want to call them. And then he had hired one that day of October 30th of 1975 and had Ken Littleton move in to their house. And then later that night was when Martha Moxley was bludgeoned. And then after she was bludgeoned and probably lifeless, she was also impaled, trigger warning, through the neck with the golf club shaft. Extremely insane, extremely violent, right there on her parents' property, just 200 yards from the front door. And, there's mixed reports. It's hard to get to the bottom line, but it sounds like a civilian, a young woman, is who came across her remains that were kind of slightly hidden under a tree. But that would be really unfortunate for that civilian and for law enforcement, that if they failed to find her. And it's not like it's a massive property. It's a big property. But Martha's brother had gone looking for her the night before at about 11 o'clock. Her mother asked the big brother to go look for her, and he couldn't find her. And then in the morning, they were absolutely panic stricken. And this coming October will be the 50th anniversary of that. Squirrels on fire. Hello, hello, my dear. I was up all night with you, girl. You're bad. I can't believe your live was like 5 or 6 hours. I was there for most of it. I think I came in about an hour late, and I was actually there all the way up through the end. I was kind of lurking towards the end. I get very active sometimes in the conversation. That was an amazing live, Shan. My sleep is all junked up now. Ah, ha, 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 ha. I know I had an appointment this morning, so I was kind of screwed. And so that's probably why it took me a while to get on too, because, life happens. And then I can't stay on too long because I have got more life that needs to happen. But I definitely wanted to come on and state a few things. But I agree, it was a terrific live. Yeah, people that don't do the long lives might want to try watching it, maybe on like 1.5 speed. I mean, you talk pretty fast like me, so I don't think it's healthy for our brains to listen to the fast talkers on double speed. If someone's a real slow, methodical speaker, double speed can be fine. It can actually be preferable. But I mean, with you and me, sometimes when we're talking normal, it almost sounds like we're talking double speed. But yeah, you were covering some serious ground, and I had the freedom to just say whatever was on my mind. So it was almost like I was just doing free association. And I don't want to say poetry because that might be putting myself on some kind of pedestal. But, I looked it up too today because people were asking and wondering about the ages of Scammy's parents. And I was so close. I mean, according to the interweb, I thought that they had about a 12-year age difference. I thought that Cindy was about 60 or 65 2 years ago when this happened, 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago when I was looking everything up. And then her dad, I thought, was about 75 2 years ago. And lo and behold, the internet says that James Smith, is 77 now. And Cindy Smith, she's 65. And I think that with the math, the way I was doing it, because, there's a little bit of wiggle room. The internet's not 100% accurate. That Cindy was about 44, and the dad would have been how old? Older than that. I have it right here. I've got my 3 notebooks today. So with all these numbers, I get confused. So he would have been about 57 when Scammy was born, and the mom would have been about 44. That might sound old to a lot of people. I was actually 44 when I had my last kid, the one who is almost 13 right now. And it sounds old to me. Like at first I'm like, wow, 44, she was like an old lady. And then I'm like, oh, right. So was I. Okay. I didn't have my first till I was 34. So by some people's standards, I was already an old lady. Anyway, James Smith, 77 now, would have been about 57 when Scammy was born. I think that it's relevant because I think her oldest sibling is like 20 years older than her. And we don't know the family story. We don't know if she was a planned pregnancy, an accidental pregnancy. There's even been question if she was like a grandchild or something like that. Any of it's possible. But I also don't want to start any rumors. So these are all just questions, right? The goal is to do lives like that on SoFire and then break them down into videos. Oh, excellente. Great. Because, yeah, a lot of people just cannot ever get into a 5-hour live. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people can't even get into a 1-hour live, although there are a lot of people who love 1-hour lives more than they like the bite-size videos. So, yeah, those long ones are very rich and there's a lot of information. You just have to be really patient and just like play it in the background while you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, going about your day. Free thought and speech is my forte, especially for chat. Yeah, I really like to do that too. I absolutely love to do that. Yeah, hey, he's a dinosaur. I think he's like 26 years on her. Well, what I was looking at today, which was consistent with what I looked at 2 years ago, is that he's 77 right now. She is how old right now? About 64, 65. So about a 12-year age difference, I believe, if I'm doing my math right, if my numbers are accurate. But, there's always margin for error for sure. Her birth was an accident, unlike Kylie's passing. Squirrel, that is brilliant. Can we quote you on that? That's a really good quote. How do you know her birth was an accident? Just because, like, in God's grand scheme of things, it had to be? Because why? I like 30-minute videos as much as I love throwing on hours-long podcasts while I do my adulting. Yeah, I like to listen to some of the longer videos too. Like, I think a lot of like 30-minute and 1 hour and 90-minute. It is nice when you can check out a video real quick in just like 2 minutes. But so many of the videos I find, if you catch the first few minutes, you pretty much got the gist of it. MC told us she was a mistake and unexpected. Oh, see, I missed that. See, that's where you benefited from listening so intently to MC Ultra. And I just was like, I just can't. So thanks for sacrificing yourself, Shan. That's awesome. So Cindy's middle name is like Bobby. Is that right? Like Babby? Not Bobby, but Babby. Babby. And maybe her name is even Cindy A. Babby Smith, like Babby Smith, all one word. I mean, if you look it up online, if you just look up Cindy Babby Smith, and you can look up, I think I was looking up Sierra Tahoe investigations, and you just get a landslide of information. She passed the bar January 5th of 1988. So that was a very, very long time ago, almost 40 years ago. And what else? Their address is still on Huntsman Loop. That's, I believe, the business address. And I'm not doxing anybody because, like I said, this is all readily available with a quick Google. And I think that they have connections, or that they used to live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Shan. Everything comes back to your state. Babby is her maiden name. Oh, see, I thought it was like a nickname. Bill Babby is her daddy. What interesting name. I shouldn't make fun of it. But it is an odd name. I've never heard it before this case. And then, yeah, so she was an accident. I mean, I think what's important to pay attention to is that she was probably largely neglected by her parents because they were kind of over being parents. They'd been parents for 20 years. I know how that is because I've been a parent for almost 23 years now, and it does get a little bothersome to, not complaining. I love my life, but, just doing all of like the school stuff that you have to do, and you have to do it, in my opinion. I mean, your child needs you and you need to be in tune with things. But as we get older, and we've already done it with so many kids, I have 4, just like the Smiths have 4. And there wasn't a 20-year age difference. There was only a 10-year age difference from the oldest to the youngest. So I can really see where the mom might have just been like done and moving on to other things. And then maybe Sammy was raised by wolves. That's my guess. I mean, I was sort of raised by wolves, so I'm not like trying to be insulting. I'm just saying that that's what happens. A lot of parents aren't really good parents. And I like to say that I was raised by a couple of wolves in a barn, except that the wolves weren't even there. That's pretty much my life story, right? They have connections in Virginia, D.C., and Harrisburg. Isn't Harrisburg where that airplane went down? Did they do that? Is that where the 9/11 airplane went down? C3PO, what up? Mainly federal connections. There's a 22-year difference between me, the baby, and my eldest brother, 7 of us. Yeah. And, I was looking at Ethel Skakel. Am I getting her name right? I was looking at Ethel Skakel's bloodline with her children. She had 11 children, I think, in 18 years that she was married to RFK before he was assassinated. 11 children, which wasn't uncommon back then, especially for Catholic families like theirs. I want to say that RFK Jr. is the 3rd eldest. And yeah, that's a really big family. The Skakels had the 7, and that was a big family. I mean, in all honesty, these days when having 4 children like I do, people think you're insane. People think that's way too many kids. That's like more than twice as many kids as you need, right? I mean, it's just not a thing so much anymore. I mean, sure, once in a while, people have still very large families, like 13 or 20. I mean, especially if you go to these like religions and cults and the Mormons, and yeah, a lot of that. Not sure what case you're talking about today. So currently at the moment, I'm kind of talking about Martha Moxley, kind of talking about Kylie Rodney. So in my last video, I was conjuring up some of the similarities between the two. And it was really wild to me because I had not even known that Martha Moxley's mother had passed away last week, Dorothy. So she was 92, and she actually had like a colon cancer or something like that. Like she had more time in her, if not for the cancer. And then Ethel Skakel Kennedy was 96. So they both lived very long lives, almost as long as Jimmy Carter. We already touched on some of the Jimmy Carter stuff. And yeah, I was surprised to look up with the hostages, the Iranian hostages with Jimmy Carter, because I was a kid when that happened. I was a young tween. I didn't realize there were 66 of them, 66 hostages. And that really took a lot of time and attention from him. And I don't think any of them didn't make it, right? They all survived, all 66. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I remembered it as being a heck of a lot less. I was thinking like 5 or 8. I couldn't believe it when I looked it up. I was like, how did I miss that other than the fact that I was like 12 years old, probably? Guess I wasn't watching the news enough, right? That is Johnsontown area. Okay, thanks. Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where 93 went down, but no plane parts were found, like the Pentagon. Is that so wild? So yeah, there's a couple of interesting movies. I've seen both of Michael Moore's movies about 9/11 and 11/9. If those are of interest to anyone, I'll put those in the description. I think Michael Moore is a brilliant videographer, I guess you would call him. And he's like a investigative journalist. And he's from, what's the name of that town? Flint. He's from Flint, Michigan, which I've been through Flint, Michigan. Actually, like a couple of days after Kylie went and disappeared, I went through Flint, Michigan on the way home from the Upper Peninsula. This is a funny little story. I found somebody's smashed cell phone in the campground, and I charged it up, and then it rang, and I answered it, and it was the wife of the guy who had lost it there in the campground. It was all smashed from the getting run over in the gravel. But we met up with them right off the freeway in Flint and gave the phone to them and met them. They were really sweet, cute young couple. So grateful, of course. And the reason I was telling you about it was because this was in 2022. It was about August 10th, probably, of 2022. And like I said, just a couple of days after Kylie's case was known about. And Flint, is like an armpit. I mean, no offense to the city. I mean, it's just been through a lot. It's like one of the roughest cities in the country, much like Springfield, Ohio. Springfield, Ohio is a very rough city too. And Flint's a lot worse than Detroit in my estimation. I've never actually been to Detroit, but anyway, back to Flint. The woman that met up with us to get her husband's phone, this cute young woman, she said that she had been in the business of I think she used to buy things from auctioned storage spaces, right? You know how that's like a big thing, like that got a reality show and everything. So in Flint, she said after the whole thing with their water getting lead poisoning, that the best thing that you could find in a storage unit, because you didn't know what was in it until you paid for it, but it was like striking gold if you got a storage unit that was just full of packaged water bottles. Isn't that wild? Absolutely wild. I was thinking it might have been the opposite. Like that would be like getting a garage full of coal or something. But she was just like, man, if your lot was just, shrink wrapped water bottles, that was the biggest score you could hope for. So, oh, man, what a terrible predicament that city has been in for decades. And then when they made that mistake, if it was a mistake, it's almost like they did it on purpose. When they poisoned the entire city's water supply with lead, and once you get lead in your system, you're never getting it out again. So a lot of people were extremely negatively impacted by that. And that is largely what Michael Moore's second 9/11 video, the one that's called 11/9. It also focuses very intensely on the Trump campaign from 11/9, because that was the day that it was announced that he won that election. I think the election that year was like on 11/6 or 7. I think it was 11/7. Anyway, it was a couple of days later that all of a sudden it flipped, because it was already announced that Hillary had won. And then they were like, oh, wait, psych, no. And so Michael Moore goes into great depth with that and with the whole thing with Flint and a bunch of other stuff. It's been a long time since I've watched the 9/11 one. Maybe I should rewatch that, because I saw the 11/9 one a long time ago, and then I rewatched it just sometime in the last 6 months or so, and I was really glad that I rewatched it. What is Babby? Yeah, F cancer. I know. It's hateful. I'm getting my puppy dog scheduled for her radiation treatment so that her cancer doesn't come back. So, yeah, we got really lucky. Did they ever clean up Flint's water, or did that funding go to foreign aid too? What had happened was they started getting the public water out of the river, and the river was all fouled up with the pollution. And then they did fix it. And it focuses on this in Michael Moore's documentary, is that it was one female pediatric physician that really nailed it and really, brought the whole thing to light and got it resolved. So, one person can make a difference. That was huge. So I think that the city's water supply was poisoned for like a year before they fixed it. But all of the people who'd been poisoned, they're still poisoned. They'll always be poisoned. I'm sure there were fatalities. I'm sure there was cancers. There was a lot of skin issues. You couldn't even bathe in the stuff. I don't think you could like boil the lead out or anything. You just had to have bottled water. It was absolutely nuts. And then when they fixed it, this is one of the worst things I've ever seen Obama do. When they fixed it, Obama went there to give a great speech about how wonderful everything was again. And he held up a glass of tap water from Flint and pretended to drink it. Like he put it on his mouth, but he kept his mouth shut. And the whole room just went silent, and you could hear a pin drop. And I was just like, man. There was one other huge faux pas that, if you can call it a faux pas, I mean, just blasphemy, really, that Obama did. Overall, I thought he was pretty fantastic. But what happened with Otto Warmbier, the 22, 24-year-old kid from Ohio, from Wyoming, Ohio. It's a part of Cincinnati, very wealthy part of Cincinnati. That went to North Korea for like an adventure, weird New Year's trip and stole a poster. First of all, he was on a floor in the hotel that he wasn't allowed to be on, but then he took a souvenir with him, and then he got apprehended in the airport as he was trying to board the plane, and this guard or, soldier, officer, whatever, grabbed him by the shoulder when he was trying to board the plane. And Otto and his friends that he was traveling with said something like, well, we'll never see Otto again. And he was like, well, you'll never see me again. And unfortunately, they were right. It was not a joke. So Otto died while being held captive for 12 months. And during that whole 12 months, Obama was very reassuring to the family that he was getting him back unharmed. So they cooled their jets because they had a lot of resources. Like they might have been able to get some other action going privately, but it's hard to say. I mean, when you're dealing with Kim Jong-un and North Korea, you're screwed. I mean, so that was horrible. That was absolutely horrible. And we need more Erin Brockoviches in this world. Yeah, wasn't that a great movie, Erin Brockovich? That was an amazing movie. We absolutely need more Erin Brockoviches in this world. Wouldn't we all love to be Erin Brockoviches? Or, prior to the Erin Brockovich movie, there was the Karen Silkwood movie. And that was a devastating, true story about the same type of thing. And also, you got Chernobyl. I mean, that's another nuclear disaster. So you had the one I think it was in Northern California with Erin Brockovich. And then the one with Karen Silkwood, I don't remember where that was. It might have even been the same location as the Erin Brockovich story. Shall we look? Shall we Google? Karen Silkwood. A lot of people these days probably don't know that name. She was played by Cher, of all people. Karen Silkwood documentary. So there's a lot of podcasts about it these days. It was the Kerr-McGee plant, plutonium. Silkwood was exposed to plutonium. And then she was ran off the side of the road. She was a whistleblower, another whistleblower. So we also had that Boeing jet plane crash, unaliving like about 170 or almost 180 people on board. I think it was like 178 on board and only 2 survived, like the 2 crew members that were in the very, very back, if I'm getting my facts straight. That was just the day before yesterday. And then Putin apologized for shooting the plane down, although he didn't say that he ordered the plane to get shot down, right? So scary. So now I'm just like, great. So now we're going to have a whole bunch more whistleblowers from Boeing get Karen Silkwood, as I say. I just want to know where. Okay, so there's something streaming on Hulu right now. What happened to Karen Silkwood? We're going to have to watch that, aren't we? So the radioactive mystery podcast. Was it an accident or something more sinister? Yeah, that's a tough one to answer, huh? I just want to find out where the location was of this plutonium plant, the Kerr-McGee plutonium plant. Where is that? Do you guys know? Plutonium. That does not sound good. I did watch the documentary about Chernobyl. That was really good. Kerr-McGee plutonium plant. Oklahoma. Interesting. Fuel fabrication site near Crescent, Oklahoma, that produced plutonium pellets for nuclear reactor fuel rods. And then the Erin Brockovich story was either California or Nevada, right? Look that one up too. It's just so sad, all the people that die during the process, right? And so the chemical in that case was chromium-6, also known as hexavalent chromium. And the carcinogen found in tap water of more than 250 million. So was that California? Where did that happen? Yeah, I think it was California. Huh. I wonder, what was the name of the company? Oh, yeah, that's right. It was PG&E. I remember now. So PG&E. I'm just wondering where the chemical company, what part of California? How close to Truckee, right? Sorry for all the dead air time. I just got to look this stuff up. Oh, the desert in southern. Well, she lived in the desert in Southern California. That doesn't mean it was Hinckley, California. Yeah, I remember now. Okay. So where the heck is Hinckley? It's an unincorporated community in San Bernardino County. San Bernardino is Southern California, right? Wow. And 60 miles east of the Mojave Desert. So really hot, really, really hot. About 120 miles drive northeast from Los Angeles. Okay, just to give you an idea of where that is. Here's a map of California. If you can see on my phone. I hate the way the glare is. Still haven't gotten my new phone. Can't see it at all. It's like way too much glare. Even though I have it like turned way down so that I can try to show you things. Can you kind of see there's the bottom of the state and that little dot there is Hinckley. So yeah, but it said northeast. Yeah, northeast of Los Angeles. Okay, 2 hours northeast of Los Angeles. Man, yeah. Because I lived in LA for a long time, and Hinckley's not a place you ever hear about. It's like out in the middle of nowhere, right? Um, Trump's buddy in North Korea. Yeah, MC3. I know. I was trying not to say anything like that. I mean, he's also buddies with Putin, and he's like, well, they might not be enemies. They might be frenemies or something. I don't know. I love the People's Advocate movies based on true stories where one woman or person takes on a network of psycho companies. I know. Whistleblowers should be protected, not prosecuted. Well, they often get Karen Silkwooded. And yeah, there are a lot of laws to protect whistleblowers because they often get Karen Silkwooded. They get retaliated against, they get fired, they get rubbed out, they get destroyed, absolutely destroyed. Especially if it's constitutionally backed whistleblowing. She spoke up on PG&E in California. There you go. LOL, Hinckley, California. I love when I wake up and someone is live. Hey, Ninchi. Ninja True Crime, lovely to see you, my dear. Thank you for being here. San Bernardino is kind of the valley. Well, I mean, when you live in Southern California and Los Angeles, everything that's not the beach is the valley when you're a teenager. But yeah, I mean, that's a long haul into the valley. Like that's halfway to Nevada. So not too far then probably from Palm Springs, right? Also very, very hot. And it doesn't look like it's too far from Needles. Is Needles in Arizona? That's like the hottest place in the world. Needles. Ugh, I've been through there a couple of times. It's called Needles for a reason. I think it can be like 100 and over upwards of 120 in the summer. Needles. Oh, it's in California. Okay. And how far is it? It's San Bernardino County too. Okay. I wonder how close that is to like Joshua Tree also. City of Needles is also in the Mojave Desert. So yeah, probably all of Joshua Tree and Hinckley are probably Mojave Desert, right? I looked up Needles, California to Hinckley, and it told me a different Hinckley, not the California one. 2 hours and 20 minutes. So yeah, it looks like Needles is just due east. So like I think it's like right on the border, isn't it? I didn't realize that Needles was California. I thought it was whatever state it's right on the border of, either Nevada or Arizona. But yeah, Mojave Desert. And then is the Joshua Tree, is that in Mojave Desert too, you guys? I want to go to the Joshua Tree, just not in the summer. Because yeah, it is very, very hot there. So it looks like from Needles to Joshua Tree is about 3 hours. Huh. $157 Yeah, 3 hours. Okay, what you guys saying? San Bernardino is kind of the valley. So, Ninja True Crime, are you still real focused on the Madeline Soto case? I had to look away from that train wreck. It's just so effing heartbreaking and disgusting. And please tell me that Jen Soto is going to get prosecuted just as badly as Stephen, because it seems like she knew about as much as him. Ugh, unbelievable what that little girl had to go through. So let's talk about the guy Coleman. This guy named whose last name was Coleman. I didn't write down his first name. Who testified against Michael Skakel in April of 2001, and then he was found deceased in August of 2001. Almost like a whistleblower, huh? I think Coleman was one of the people that Michael Skakel was in the rehab center with. That, like, apparently he made a lot of confessions while he was in rehab, and then they tried to use like HIPAA kind of law, like, oh well, that's supposed to be confidential because it's therapy. And yeah, not when it's red rum, not if it's a crime like that. Like that confidentiality doesn't it's not privileged. I mean, privileged information is a notch up from confidentiality, and then even privileged information doesn't escape the law like that. Maybe the highest security clearance, right? Yeah, there's so many connections in these cases. It's just wild, when you look at all these cases isolated, like last night, Shannon, you're live, when you brought up the young man who disappeared from the rest stop area up there by Truckee when he was getting a sample of dirt for a science project. Like, I think he was on school hours. And if you could throw his name out there for me real quick, because it's just not coming to my mind's eye. But, it's good to know who these people are, because that makes no sense at all. This kid stops at a rest area during school hours. He goes out like it's a field trip to collect a soil sample. And then he's disappeared. Dante Del Toro. Thank you, C3PO. Absolutely. So Dante Del Toro, and then Trinity Backus. You can't bring up Trinity Backus without bringing up Paisley Woodard. And you can't really bring up Paisley Woodard without bringing up the person that ran her over, who might have dated the same boyfriend that Paisley Woodard and Trinity Backus were dating when they lost their lives at the tender age of 16. I think they were both 16, 15, 16, 17. Anyway, they were doppelgangers. I often forget to mention that part. And then the whole thing with Trinity Backus's stepdad being a Nevada County sheriff's deputy, Christopher Stanio, and her mother, Andrea Stanio, and Christopher were divorced. In fact, I think Chris had remarried and had more children with his new wife. But then they were divorced, and Andrea moved back in with Chris, I think around 2 weeks before her daughter goes missing, and then comes up deceased with no foul play and nothing suspicious. Oh, other than the fact that she's deceased, nothing suspicious, nothing to see over here, folks. And then it gets even weirder when you find out that Christopher Stanio has an identical twin brother who is a California Highway State Patrol trooper, Matthew Stanio. A lot of people don't know these things. This is why I have to be so careful about what cases I look into, because I can't help but like dive usually as deep as I can, because you find all these things out and it's just very eye-opening and mind-boggling. So then you've got that boyfriend, Francis Fowler, whose mother's name I believe was Sunshine Fowler, who was like some kind of priestess of the occult kind of thing, maybe, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. The same type of high priestess that Lindsay might have been. And she like officiated the celebration of life of Kylie Rodney. And we all know that Kylie Rodney quote unquote celebration of life was not a celebration of her life. It was a celebration of like Scammy being the crowned queen. And I can't help but make the parallels with that television miniseries HBO Max miniseries that I just watched that was made a few years ago called Sharp Objects. And it focuses on this small town of about 2,000 people with the wealthiest family in town. And, the thumbnail outline of the storyline is that a tween girl went missing and then showed up deceased in the river a few weeks later, the year before. And then this time that the story is taking place, where the setting is, another tween girl in this small town of 2,000 people where everybody knows everybody also goes missing. And so they know that they're going to find her unalive, and then they do. And so the Amy Adams character goes there before that second one is discovered, but she's there as an investigative journalist from the big city to crack the case, but she used to live there. So she knows the ropes and she knows the secrets of the small town because she's from that very, very wealthy family that basically owns the entire town. And it's hog farmers. Wind Gap is the name of the town. I don't know if that's a made up name or if there's actually a Wind Gap. I think it's Missouri. Anyway, it's a very, very well done movie. I couldn't help but see parallels in that movie with Truckee, and even with other places that I know of too that I won't get into right now. So still on Maddie. Yeah. And then, when I first saw Maddie's name, I was thinking of Idaho 4. There's a lot getting kicked up on the Idaho 4 right now too. And it's crazy. The whole thing with Koberger being named as a person of interest in a break-in in Pullman, Washington from October of 2021, that they named him as a person of interest in January 2023 after they'd arrested him for being the person of interest for Idaho 4. And then they were able to quickly rule him out. And then it's just become a dumpster fire poop fest with that over the last couple of weeks. I think basically because it was the holidays and it was like slow news. And a lot of the people that ran with that crap was mainstream media, you guys. And thank goodness for the channels that have pushed back on it. Like Jules of All Trades has been stellar in spearheading the pushing back. I've pushed back on it, but my channel is so tiny. I know Harsh Reality has pushed back on it. Probably most channels that have mentioned it have pushed back on it, because if you watch any of the body cam footage or if you watch the 2-minute mainstream media videos about it, they say right away that it wasn't him, basically, but people don't take the time to even get that far. They just go, oh, named as a person of interest in 2021. Of course, I knew he did it. Just like all the other fantasy cases that they tried to paint him as a part of everybody that had ever been within a 100-mile radius of him that had disappeared. Literally, they did that right after they arrested him. And I think that there was one woman that when she disappeared, he was like 12 years old. And they were trying to say, well, he might have started really young. Yeah. It's just like, people, like, cool your jets and, just the facts, ma'am, please. It's hard enough to tell fact from fiction when you're not trying to muddy the water, when you're not trying to paint a picture the way you want to see it. It was a field trip. They got on the bus and left without one of the students. I'm sure it was all just a coincidence. Are you kidding me, C3PO? Can you verify that, Shan? Because I thought he drove his own car out there. Gotta run errands so that I can stop to replace marshmallows the cat ruined, LOL. Oh, that's funny. You got to do some emergency s'mores or something for the new year. Is that accurate? He was on a school bus and then the school bus left without him? Because that's not anywhere remotely close to okay. Have a blessed Monday. Yes, you too, squirrels. Love you, my dear. That is so wild. So we're already getting close to an hour. What else did I want to touch base with you guys about before calling it a day? So in my last video, when I was talking about the statute of limitations on people that are accessories to red rum, I was probably talking in circles and not making sense. And so there is a statute of limitations, at least in Connecticut, in the state of Connecticut, where Martha Moxley lost her life. Anybody who might have been involved in that or helped cover that up, they would be free and clear of any adjudication, basically, because of the statute of limitations for accessories. Anybody who's committed red rum, of course, there's no statute of limitations on. So I wonder about California. I wonder if, in Kylie's case, if there's a statute of limitations on anybody who was an accessory or an accomplice. An accomplice might not fit the way accessory does. Accessory before, during, or after the fact. If they are free from adjudication after a certain number of years, then maybe people who were eyewitness, who saw something gruesome, to quote Sam Brown, the night of the party, maybe they will come forward once they're free and clear with a statute of limitations, that they won't have to go to jail. But in the event that Scammy is the princess of that town, crowned princess at what should have been Kylie Rodney's celebration of life, and, if it's what it looks like it is, she runs that town. Like, her parents have been running that town for decades, and then she's the baby that basically inherits their wealth and their power. Because before Shan found out about the $33 or $34 billion worth of government contracts that they managed that they're in the process of managing for this decade of the 2020s, before Shan came across that, we already knew that they managed like all of the community money, community funds, like the Arts Council, like scholarships, all of that, all the projects. And we also knew that the parents were representing the federal government in a 20 plus year litigation with Kylie Rodney's granddad. And then it wasn't until a lot more recently, like just in the last couple of months, that I thought, well, maybe, just maybe, Kylie's granddad and Scammy's mommy and daddy, maybe they weren't in opposite corners, in direct opposition to each other with all of that legal wrangling. Maybe they set it up to make it look like they were in opposition to each other, but maybe they were working together to drag it out, to keep the money rolling in to Truckee, to keep the money rolling into the Sierra Nevada investigations. And maybe that has some kind of bearing in that $34 billion that Kylie's granddad has some claim to that money, or thinks that he has some claim to that money, or that Scammy's parents don't want him to think that he's got claim to that money. Maybe what happened with Kylie wasn't so much about Kylie and the boys. Shan, going back to she's gone now. Your story has your cheese has holes in it, bro. Shan's big thing back then when I first discovered her channel was that she thought that the adults in the town did it, and that they basically hired Scammy to take the heat and to be the fixer. And I agreed with her on most things except that. I thought, no, Scammy's Scammy did it. Scammy's the bad guy. But, you know, in real life, these stories are so much more complicated, so much more layered. You cannot possibly wrap your mind around it. You know, when you have these small towns and these people's histories that go way, way back, and maybe there was some heartbreak, maybe there was some love affair, maybe there was some anything at all, you know, like just an unfortunate coincidence with these families or with these people or with these properties, right? And being up there on Donner Pass where you've got the cannibalism. And the whole thing with the cannibalism, I said it in Shan's live last night, like I really feel like cannibalism has a lot to do with Kylie Rodney's case. I'm not saying that she was treated as long pig, but if you Google long pig, you'll find out what that is, which I did not know that that was a term, but it's a thing. And I know that the elite allegedly feel like they gain power by consuming long pig. So if you're going to consume long pig and you're not the Donner Party and people aren't freezing to death and starving to death, how are you going to consume long pig? It's horrific, horrifying. Fred Field says, I was watching Shan's long live from last night. All of us stalkers got sent home after an hour. Assistant general manager worried about year sales not in line with payroll. Oh, well, that stinks that you're planning on working and then you get your hours cut. I mean, hopefully you enjoy the time off, but, you know, usually you're at work because you want the money and they shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, they really shouldn't be able to do that. Like I hope there's some kind of union protecting you to get at least like 4 hours paid or something when you're arranging your life around that shift for the day, you know, your sleep, everything. It's ridiculous. Can't spell a week since midnight. LOL. Can't type. I know. I was having a lot of trouble typing in Shan's live last night because I was like half asleep and half lurking, and then I'd get all active in the conversation because it was so good. So good. So let's see what else about the I think there's an Oxygen true crime. Yeah, there's an Oxygen true crime miniseries from 2019. I'll try to link it up in the description that is about the Martha Moxley case. And I watched it over the last few days. And until 2020, until October 30th, 2020, the 45th anniversary of her bludgeoning, it still could have been retried. Skakel still could have been retried. And he might, even though he's a Kennedy, even though a judge said it can never be retried again, if somebody sued that judge, they might be able to get that judge's ruling overturned if they had a good case and a lot of money and good representation, because it really is who you know. It's who you're connected with, unfortunately. I mean, we all know that somebody like the Kennedys or somebody like a Scammy Smith or a Hamburglar, these people are kind of untouchable, you know. Puff Daddy, the Carters, not the President Carter family, the other Carters, you know. The twinning Seans, Sean Carter, Sean, what is the other Sean's? John, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean, what the F his name? Anyway. So they go way back with Wexler. Wexler was some kind of like accounting genius that has a lot to do with Columbus, Ohio. He's donated gazillions of dollars to OSU. Like all their medical facilities are named after him. Probably a lot of their sports facilities are named after him. But Wexler and Epstein and Michael Jeffries were all tight. And P. Diddy hung out with them too. And Weinstein hung out with them too. So right now, Michael Jeffries is trying to make a case that he's too feeble-minded to be taken to trial. So he's basically realizing that the end is here. You know, these charges against him have taken 10 years to result in his arrest. He's allegedly going to be tried this next year, but he's trying to get declared mentally incapable of a trial, so then he can just like go to some type of dementia facility instead of having to go to prison. What an absolute scumbag. So let's see. No union. I worked the 1 hour and took paid time off for the other 3 hours. Well, that's nice that you could take the paid time off at least. Oh, thank you, Sean Combs. Yeah. See, I just would rather like block him out of my brain. So he seems like he's in a similar predicament as Michael Jeffries. So it would be, the thing with Michael Jeffries is he's probably like 70-ish. And, you know, now he's saying, oh, I'm too feeble-minded to go through this. And let's see, did he try to pull that same card, right? Yeah. Did you guys see the president-elect's comments about Jimmy Carter? I wanted to read them to you before I wrap up today. You know, I fully expected him to say some terrible things, and I was hoping he would prove me wrong. And he already, okay, USA Today 2 hours ago. I wonder if they're going to quote the same things that I was going to quote, which were the Truth Social posts that he made last night. So USA Today, yeah, I thought it was in really poor taste, really, really poor taste. And I thought, did he write this himself? Like, did he not run this by any of his staff? Because I can't imagine that any of his staff would have let him put that out. So Trump mocked Jimmy Carter as worst president in history. But after Carter's death, Trump suggested ex-leader had his highest respect. So let me see if they have the actual Truth Social posts. That's what I wanted to read to you. If they don't have them in this article, I know where to find them. You would think that they would have them if they're going to write a whole article about it. Have it, you know, have it handy so that people know what you're talking about. It's not just your opinion. Let's see. Let's see. Jackie Bushable says, no, I did not hear what he said about President Carter. Yeah, you might not want to hear. I think it's heinous. Okay, so here we go. CBS News, read Trump's statements. So he issued 2 statements. This was updated just 4 hours ago, so maybe there's other statements since this one. I had to read them a couple of times, and to me, they're just cringeworthy. I just heard the news about the passing of President Jimmy Carter. Those of us who have been fortunate to have served as president understand this is a very exclusive club, and only we can relate to the enormous responsibility of leading the greatest nation in history. The challenges Jimmy faced as president came at a pivotal time for our country, and he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. Melania and I are thinking warmly of the Carter family and their loved ones during this difficult time. We urge everyone to keep them in their hearts and prayers. That's it. That's the first one. But to me, it's like very thinly veiled, insulting, saying that he really effed up his presidency. But Trump knows, because he's been in this very exclusive club. He knows how much pressure it is and how Jimmy just did the best that he could under terrible circumstances. In a separate post about an hour later, he wrote, President Jimmy Carter is dead at 100 years of age. Period. Like, that's a weird sentence to start your tribute with. That's pretty cold. President Jimmy Carter is dead at 100 years of age. While I strongly disagreed with him philosophically and politically, I also realized that he truly loved and respected our country and all it stands for. He worked hard to make America a better place, and for that, I give him my highest respect. He was a truly good man, and of course he will be greatly missed. He was also very consequential, far more than most presidents, after he left the Oval Office. Warmest condolences from Melania and I to his wonderful family. First of all, I don't really believe that Trump and Melania are still a thing. That's just me, in my opinion. Second of all, the whole thing is just ice cold. This part where he says, while I strongly disagreed with him on basically everything, he was truly a good man. Of course he will be greatly missed. As if there's any freaking question. As if there's any freaking question. Horrible. Hideous. Okay, what are you guys saying? Just because he has money doesn't mean he has class. No, And, I really expected him to put his foot in his mouth with whatever he was going to say about him. And I would think, like, this is almost mild compared to how he normally puts his foot in his mouth. I would think it's going to get a lot worse as the day goes on. I hope not. I mean, Jimmy Carter's family does not need the animosity, and I don't think that the incoming president is going to be doing himself any favors creating that type of animosity. With the funeral services are scheduled for January 9th, and we all know that the inauguration is supposed to be January 20th. And the certification of the Electoral College votes is supposed to be January 6th, I think. I haven't looked at a calendar to see what day of the week that is. But, there's been a lot of uptick in talking about that the 14th Amendment, Section 3, might disqualify him as a candidate to be inaugurated. It didn't disqualify him from being on the ticket. And, I'm curious how that whole process went of him being on the ticket, because I would think that there were other Republicans that wanted to run. There were other Republicans that didn't want him to be on the ticket, but that nobody had a choice, because he pretty much owns everything, you guys. He owns Washington, D.C. He owns New York City for all practical purposes. He owns the state of Florida. He probably owns Russia and China and North Korea, in my humble opinion, allegedly, right? I mean, conspiracy. In my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. He didn't pass 8th grade English, but let me just say this, okay? He's always talking about what a freaking genius he is, and he's always talking about how does he phrase it? A low IQ person. Oh, she's a low IQ person. He's a low IQ person. And I always want to say, do you know what a low IQ person you sound like when you talk about other people being low IQ people? It makes you sound like a low IQ person. So I just Googled one day, like, whoa, what's Trump's IQ? Because, like that's going to be Googleable, right? Let's Google any other president, what their freaking IQ is. And it showed up as like 156 or something like that, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. It was like a month ago that I Googled it. And, my moron, murderous father had an IQ upwards of 160. I think it was 164 or something like that. He was categorized as a genius by the intelligent quota. But remember back in the 90s, the whole thing with the emotional quota, the EQ, like if you've got a high level of intelligence, like maybe somebody like the other incoming president, the one who's not American, if you've got a high IQ like that, but you've got like zero emotional intelligence, your high IQ isn't really going to do that much for you. It might put you on Mars, but what else? Like, are you going to have happiness? Are you going to have love? Are you going to have healthy relationships with yourself, with other people, with a higher power? I mean, that's what's important. That's what's important. So yeah, it really upsets me. I mean, Jimmy Carter lived a great life. Just let him rest in peace. Let the country and his family bury him with all of the respect and honor and dignity that he earned every freaking day of his life, basically. Yeah, I don't think he passed the 8th grade English. I don't even know if he passed like the 3rd or 4th grade English, honestly. One of the things that drives me the craziest about him or anybody, it's one of my pet peeves, is when people use the same word again and again and again in the same sentence, in the same paragraph, in the same speech. It's like, mix it up. Where's your thesaurus, man? I used to carry a thesaurus in my backpack with me when I was in college. And I still have multiple thesauruses, even though you don't need hard copies anymore because you can just look it up on your phone. If your brain's not able to do the heavy lifting, which usually mine can't, or a lot of times I'm just trying to think of words that I can't conjure up. Like I know, how frustrating that is. Like I know there's a word for that. What's that word? Starts with a C. You start doing like the charades. They are grooming Baron. Oh, stop. Ugh. I mean, we already have Don Jr. and the other guy to worry about, not to mention Jared. And then Ivanka, I guess, wants nothing to do with them. So let's talk about Ivanka and Jared and the other one. Wait, no, not Jared is Ivanka's husband. So you got Don Jr. and then you've got Eric. So you got Eric, Don Jr., and Ivanka. So their biological mother, Ivana, drops to her end of life July of 2022, was it? I think it was July of 2022. It was literally the day before Donald Sr., Donald Jr., and Ivanka were all starting their depositions for the case, the lawsuit, the trial of his financial fraud, saying that his like 3,000 foot penthouse apartment was 30,000 square feet, inflating all of his assets so that he could get bigger loans and better interest rates. And so the night before they're starting this, what's expected to be like a week-long series of depositions, Ivana is no more. And this is, I think, about 8 months after her 49-year-old ex-husband passed away. The one that allegedly had cancer and liver failure, melanoma, and a brain aneurysm or something. I mean, like, seriously, it's just like really, like, all those things, like, he could have had all those things, but probably only one of them took his life. So which was it? Are you just throwing spaghetti at the wall? And then the day after the insurrection, January 8th of 2021, that Dr. Bornstein passed away at an unknown location from an unknown cause. Did I say the day after? It was 2 days after. So the insurrection was January 6th of 2021. And then Dr. Bornstein passed away January 8th of 2021. And that was the same doctor that signed the letter that Trump dictated to him saying that Trump was the healthiest specimen of a presidential candidate ever seen by the eyes of the Lord and God and everyone else. And then he came out publicly and said, I didn't write that letter. That letter was dictated to me. It's on my stationery. And yes, I signed it. And then it wasn't that long after that his physician's practice, his medical practice was raided by an FBI agent, a bodyguard, and a government official. 3 big dudes came in, trashed the place, roughed everybody up, and took the president's files. It's insane. And, I'm not going to cower away from speaking the truth on this stuff because we can't afford it. If anybody cares and wants to learn more about the 14th Amendment, Part 3, I'll put some links in the description. It's a very real, active case. I just don't know that it's going to get any traction because, of course, his side is going to try to shoot it all down and intimidate people and fearmonger. And honestly, it almost seems like the Democrats have sold out to that. Like most of the Democrats are just like, oh, okay, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. When, there's always something you can do. You can at least fight to the bitter end. The most beloved president of modern times, that must smart the orange man. Yeah, absolutely. Like he wants to take the spotlight. Like I'm just waiting for him to say, well, like he was so stupid. He got 66 hostages taken on his watch. I didn't want to say it because, speak of the devil and the devil shall appear. But isn't that the next thing that he's going to say? Granny Annie, hey there. He needs traction, needs to happen. It needs traction. Yeah. And it might, there's been a lot going on behind the scenes with this, you guys. I have not paid that much attention to it because I don't want to get my hopes up, but it's going to be a cold day in HE double hockey sticks before the orange one ever is taken out of office again, if he is to get into office again. He'll never let it happen. He'll never let it happen. Fred Fields says, I looked up Long Pig. I hope that did not happen to Kylie. That would be gruesome. Well, that is the story behind the Lord of the Flies story, right? Because they even, the young kid that they ostracize and that they take out, his name is Pig. That's his nickname. And I think that that's implied that they ate him. But you got to remember, too, we're dealing with Truckee, where it's treated as like some kind of fairy tale. Like the whole Donner Party is just like, isn't that cute? I think that the people in Truckee have a lot of respect for the Donner Party for surviving, even at the cost of, they didn't only survive off of those who didn't make it. They also made sure that there were some that didn't make it so that they had enough to survive. So, yeah. And yeah, these stories with all of the horrible assaults that happen at these parties and with these people in positions of power like Michael Jeffries, his thing was modeling. He got all these beautiful young men and women to be models for Hollister and Abercrombie and Fitch, and I'm sure Victoria's Secret and a bunch of others too. It's like a conglomerate that owns all of those, probably the Limited and more and more and more. I don't know if Bath and Body Works is owned by that consortium. Anyway, it's a powerhouse in Columbus, and Columbus is a powerhouse of a city, you guys. A lot of people don't realize the power that Columbus, Ohio has. It's within, I don't know all the statistics anymore, but it's something like within 1,000 miles of 2/3 of the nation's population. So it's a really good location to headquarter your business so that you can work with New York City, Boston, Chicago, Houston, Georgia, Florida, all of it. And the only thing you don't get when you're in Columbus is the West Coast. And, most people in Ohio don't care about the West Coast anyway, to be quite honest. It's kind of like people on the West Coast don't really care much for people in Ohio, and people in Ohio just think that West Coast is wacko. And people on the West Coast think Ohio is just boring. And it's like, yeah, nothing to see over here, folks. It's boring. You don't want to come. Nothing to see over here. Hamburglar did look upset at the rec center. Fred Field, I'm glad you said that because, yeah, there's so many pictures of the mini Hamburglar touching his face and touching his mouth and looking really upset. Really, really, really upset. And I think he'd already gone through some of the treatment facility stuff for addiction. We know he dated Scammy. We know that allegedly he dated Kylie. Allegedly he was hanging out with Kylie that night. Allegedly she'd broken up with Jägermeister, but then, Jägermeister positioned himself as her boyfriend and then not boyfriend and then on again, off again. And then the texting, the last people to text, the last people to see, the last people to have interactions with a missing person are the people usually that cause that person to go missing, which is exactly why they're the last people to have those interactions with them. So, those are always going to be your people of interest. Even if they turn out to be innocent in the end, you have to treat them as persons of interest to begin with. And they weren't really treated like that by the local law enforcement, it didn't seem. And Kylie's family wasn't really treated like that by the local law enforcement, it didn't seem. And before I wrap up, I just want to reiterate one of the things that I was saying in Shan's live last night. What I just keep going back to again and again in my mind's eye is, why in the F were those parents allegedly out there in the woods cleaning up in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., 4 a.m. after their kids' party? Like, no, parents don't do that. They don't even go out there the next day. No, they were cleaning up evidence, in my opinion. And just all of the little scammy stories about the peeing all over the woods and the Elsa story about falling down in the hole. My guess is that there was a bunch of Kylie's strands of hair in that hole, and that there was her body fluids all over the floor of the Prosser family campground. So, and then last night was the first time that I thought, I put this in Shan's chat, what if the lofts that MC Ultra pointed out to all of us, I think she was driving by there, she was talking about the artist lofts that are like right downtown in Truckee, affordable housing for young people and for creative people. And like, what was the point of her focusing on that? Like, is that a location where Kylie might have been held? Because I'm thinking more and more that she was held captive for a few days. She might have escaped her captivity. She was probably captive in the woods. She was probably captive in some type of RV at Prosser, at Boca. There was talk about basements and garages. Usually when there's a missing person, law enforcement will put out an alert like, check your basement, check your garage, check any outbuildings. They're not thinking you're going to find somebody like a stowaway. They're thinking you might find hidden remains. So it was MC Ultra herself who was saying, well, let's look at garages and people's rentals that are out of town, places that aren't being used, right? Fat finger hit cap lock, LOL. That's funny. Granny Annie says, exactly. Didn't Kylie's mom push the party on her versus going to Reno? That's an interesting perspective, Annie. I didn't think, I've never thought that, but, Kylie had already gone to the Hot August nights. But yeah, what's the connection with Reno? And then that whole thing with like the Jamaica apartments and the whole thing with Celicia Singh, the whole thing with Vanessa Singh, the whole thing with MC Ultra saying that she has phone numbers that she can hook you up with at the drop of a hat if you're looking for like an escort to entertain you. Remember that story that she kind of let slip out? Like, how many of us have numbers in our phones that we can just be like, oh yeah, I'll just shoot you that number. You can hook yourself up. Like, that was a big slip. And see, that's the thing. When people are doing crazy stuff like that, they don't realize how crazy that is. Like, that's not normal. Nobody's going to be like, oh yeah, I know somebody. Oh, you want to have your spouse off for the insurance money? Oh, I know somebody. I'll give you their name and number. No, nobody has those connections unless they're freaking thugs, right? Refrigerator truck is where Kylie was held, in my opinion. That too. And see, Granny Annie, like in Kylie, in Shan's video last night, and I think we've all talked about this a lot over the couple of years since her disappearance and her whole case, is that she was moved around. It was always apparent that she was moved around. Her vehicle was moved around. She was moved around. And at one point, maybe she escaped captivity, and that's when they were really shitting bricks, right? Agree with Granny Annie. Yeah, I definitely think a reefer truck was part of the story. And also like a trailer truck where they could just put her car right in it, right? Whether that was a reefer truck or not a reefer truck. It was that crazy cowboy rapper dude that came up with the idea that maybe somebody with a backhoe or an excavator just like dug a hole, put her vehicle in it, and covered it up. That's entirely plausible too. Like, we all thought that was insane when Ryan first said it. And it's like, no, Ryan knows his stuff. He knows his stuff. He's got the street smarts. Is there a place that was near hamburger businesses? I think it was. The Hamburglar businesses, I mean, they are basically bankers that own everything. And they have ties to the platform that we're on. Like, they're on the board of directors or something like that. Which is why it's just why, right? We'll just leave that out there hanging in the wind. I think she was in the RV that was behind Scammy in the presser. Oh, that's an interesting thought, CP30. I've always thought she was at Boca. I think it was like slip number 9 or slip number 6, something like that, 6 or 7 or 9. That there was a park ranger that sent a bunch of emails to their supervisor and said that they were all creeped out and that they were quitting. And I always wondered if it was because something was going on with Kylie there at Boca in that specific campsite number. They are that daring. All those scratches on Scammy's thighs, neck. She was in a fight. So, Granny Annie, there's a term for that, and it's called flying close to the sun. And when people want to get away with red rum, it's such a rush to get away with red rum, and then you can like heighten the excitement by flying even closer to the sun. And then in this day and age, all of these little thugs, they take photographs and videos of everything they do. They might write songs about it. They will post on social media about it. You know, it might look abstract, It might be a song that they say is a fantasy when it's really about them getting into their husband's concubine's apartment and ending them. I don't know. I don't know. Truckee storage refrigeration. So yeah, and then the companies that Kylie Rodney's father and grandfather, they owned a company together at Kings Beach. They had reefer trucks, or at least a reefer truck. They had a lot of equipment for snow removal and that kind of stuff. Their business, I think, was valued at least $1 million. They'd been in business together for a long time. I want to say like 20 years, and they were still in business together, which to me was odd since that wasn't her dad's dad. That was her mom's dad. So in the divorce, the mom's dad went with the ex-husband, basically. Weird, in my opinion. She could have been in a walk-in freezer in one of the large homes, ultra cleaned. Absolutely, Fred Field. And that could have been a thing too with the long pig. So yeah, let's wrap it up. This is too cray for me. I can't handle it no more. Adrenaline rush. Best night of sleep ever per the Red Rum girl I helped put away. Oh, okay. Yeah. And these things usually, it seems like people like to rub people out near their birthday, kind of like it's a birthday present to themselves or something, to have people rubbed out. Kathy White, I think that was very close to B's birthday. It was 2 days after the MTV Awards that year. Was it 2011? So 2 days after the MTV Awards, where she announced that she was pregnant. And so nobody was paying any attention to the news about this Kathy White that nobody had ever heard of anyway when that happened 48 hours later. And she had an aneurysm, right? She had a sudden brain aneurysm. But I want to say that that Mrs. Carter's birthday is right around September 1st. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to double check my notes. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Here we are getting close to 1 hour and 40 minutes. I wasn't going to go on this long, but here I have. So we got to sign off and say peace out, light and love. Have a great evening. I hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining me. It's always hard to end the stream. It's like everybody's here. I hate to go, but got to go do other stuff. So, that post about the chances of hurting your best friend being low but never zero. Thank you, C3PO. I was thinking about that last night during Shan's live, but I was so tired I couldn't even conjure it up. And then around the same time as that, the chances of unaliving your best friends are low but never zero. That was like a whole thing on social media. But around the same time that she posted something like that, she also posted something about like a scalper. Remember that little video of the 2 girls that was like a scalper thing? And it went hand in hand with that one. Yeah. Adios from San Felipe, Baja, Mexico. So have a really good afternoon, you guys. I hope to see you before the end of the year. If I don't get to see you tomorrow, then I won't see you until next year. So hopefully we'll do this again mañana. There's a lot to talk about. I'm just trying so hard to stay focused on all of this information that I would love to share with you guys, where I'm at with it. And then I'm also trying really hard to spend a lot of quality time with my family, because that's super important, right? Of course. And yeah, it's always nice to see family. And it's also always nice to get back to my regular routine after the holidays. So I'm glad that we're at the tail end of it. I'm a routine kind of person. I like my consistency. I like my stability. I like my predictability. Cartel took out 7 recently here. Scary. We knew one wonderful man, Alex. I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's a very real thing everywhere. But the Angry Orange says he's going to put a stop to that. He's just going to make them all stop. So, yeah. If he had that power, why didn't he do it the first time he was serving our country? I don't know. Just like he's got the power to reduce the price of groceries, but except that it's really hard. So, yeah, maybe not. Very, very disappointed with all of that noise. I know we all have different opinions on it. I'm just here to share my true thoughts and feelings with you guys, and please feel free to share your true thoughts and feelings with me. And I miss you. I love you. Love and light. See you soon. Have a really good afternoon. Make sure you stay hydrated. Get your nourishment. Lots of produce and high protein. Get some exercise and rest well. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care.